I'll never forget that sound, the crack that split the air like a gunshot. 1 second the cement truck was rolling across my little wooden bridge, the next it was halfway sunk in mud, the back end swallowed by the creek I'd built over with my own 2 hands. The driver jumped out, cursing. And me, I just stood there on my porch, coffee in hand, watching as the woman who thought she ruled this neighborhood finally realized she'd driven way past her authority right into my property line. People later said it was an accident, but I knew better. That moment had been building for months. See, I'm not the kind of guy who likes conflict. I keep to myself. I fix things when they break. I built that bridge years ago out of cedar planks from a small lumber yard in Dover, Tennessee, sturdy wood, the kind my dad taught me to use. He used to say, if something's yours, take care of it with your hands. I took that to heart. So when I bought this land just outside Clarksville, I built everything myself, the porch, the fence, and that bridge over the creek that ran behind my property. Life was quiet, predictable, and peaceful, until she showed up. Judith Bramwell, 50-something, always in a navy blazer, clipboard in hand, heels that clicked like a metronome on the pavement. The new HOA president of Riverside Meadow. The kind of woman who looked at a neighborhood and saw a spreadsheet. Within a week of moving in, she'd mailed out friendly notices. Garbage cans must not be visible from the street fences, must match approved color palettes. Decorations require board approval. You know the type. At first I ignored her. I paid my dues, kept my yard clean, minded my own business. But Judith didn't like being ignored. One afternoon she came walking up my driveway, all confidence and perfume. "Mr. Vale," she said, "you're aware that any structure extending beyond the designated residential line must be reviewed by the HOA board." I looked up from trimming my hedges. "If you mean my bridge, it's been there for years. I just fixed it." She smiled, that kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Well, any modifications count as new construction. I'll need documentation." "Documentation for fixing something that's mine?" I asked. She didn't answer, just said, "It's protocol," and walked away. That was the first spark. A few weeks later, when new homes started going up across the creek, I noticed something odd: tire tracks through my grass. I thought maybe some kid on an ATV had cut across. Then I heard it, that low rumble of a cement truck, and before I knew it, I saw one crawling across my bridge. I dropped my rake and shouted, "Hey, you can't drive through there." The driver leaned out the window. "Lady up the street said it's a service road." "That's private property," I yelled, but he was already gone. When I looked at the planks, one had bowed under the weight. That night I couldn't shake the image. Those heavy wheels on my handiwork tearing through the wood I'd sanded, stained, and sealed myself. The next morning I went to Judith's door. Her flower beds looked like a magazine spread her flagstone walkway spotless. She opened the door with that same smug smile. "Your trucks drove over my bridge," I said. "They're tearing up my yard." She tilted her head, calm as ever. "Oh, that. It's the quickest route for the new construction. It's temporary. It's my property. You don't have permission." Her tone sharpened. "Technically, Mr. Vale, that area could be considered community access. The creek runs along the boundary." "Not that part," I said. I checked the maps. "Well," she said sweetly, "maybe you should have attended the HOA meeting last week. We discussed accessibility concerns." "You can't vote to use my land," I said through gritted teeth. "The board approved it," she replied, and shut the door in my face. That night I sat by the creek staring at the bridge. A small crack had already formed in one of the beams. I ran my hand over it, feeling something break inside me too. But the trucks didn't stop. Neither did she. Within weeks, Judith was known around the whole neighborhood. She fined a retired couple for a basketball hoop, banned wind chimes, even dictated mailbox heights. People whispered about her but never dared to challenge her. I guess I was the exception. One Friday afternoon, I heard the rumble again. 2 cement trucks lined up behind Judith's SUV. She stood there like a general on the battlefield, pointing them toward my bridge. I stormed out of my garage shouting, "Stop those trucks, you can't drive through there." Judith didn't even look at me. "We're on a schedule, Mr. Vale. Please don't interfere with authorized activity." "Authorized by who?" I demanded. "The HOA," she said. "If you have complaints, file them properly." And with that, the first truck moved forward. The bridge groaned under the weight. My stomach twisted as the beam cracked right down the middle. When they finally made it across, the damage was done. That night, under the flashlight's beam, I inspected the splintered wood. My neighbor Cole walked up, cigarette in hand. "She really letting them use your bridge?" Yep, I muttered. Cole snorted. Community my foot. She just likes control. I nodded, eyes locked on the crack in the wood. Oh, I'll fix it, I said quietly. Just not the way she expects. The following week, the same thing happened again. Another pair of trucks, another round of damage, another smirk from Judith. I filed complaints, wrote letters, even called the county. Nothing changed. By then I'd lost sleep, lost patience, and maybe a bit of faith in fairness. There was a night I sat on my porch looking at that broken bridge, and I actually asked myself, maybe she's right. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I should just let it go. But then I looked at my hands, scarred, calloused, the same hands that built that bridge from nothing. And I remembered what my father said. If you don't stand for what's yours, someone else will take it. So I stopped playing defense. I started collecting everything: survey maps, county stamps, photos, dates, every letter she'd sent me. Then one night I got an idea. Not revenge. Something smarter. Something she couldn't twist into her favor. I was going to rebuild the bridge perfectly. But this time it would teach a lesson. I worked for nights under the soft hum of my workshop light. Bought new planks, new bolts, new tools. When Cole came by and asked what I was doing, I just said, improving it. By the end of the week, the bridge looked brand new. Every plank straight, every edge polished. But beneath it, I'd built a special section, one that would give way under heavy weight. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to make sure nobody forgot what trespassing really meant. I called it quiet justice. When Judith drove by, she rolled down her window and called, "I hope you followed HOA standards this time." I didn't even look up. "Everything's by the book," I said, "just not hers." Days passed. Nothing. Too quiet. I knew she'd come back eventually. And she did. Friday morning I saw them again, 2 trucks covered in dried cement. One of the drivers waved at me. "Hey man," HOA lady said, "it's all fixed. We can cross again." I smiled faintly. "Yeah," I said, "it's fixed." I went back to my porch, coffee in hand, and waited. Cole leaned on the fence, whispering, "She's doing it again." The first truck rolled onto the bridge. It creaked but held. The second truck followed. Then the snap. The back tires sank straight into the clay pit below. Mud exploded, splattering the windshield. The driver jumped out furious. "You did this," he yelled. "It's my bridge," I said calmly. "If it can't hold your weight, that's not my problem." Judith's SUV came screeching down the road. She jumped out, heels stabbing the dirt, shouting, "This is sabotage. You'll pay for this, Mr. Vale." Sabotage. I laughed. "I rebuilt my bridge on my property. You're the ones who keep crossing it." "You think this is funny?" she barked. "I think it's justice." Neighbors gathered, phones out. One woman started recording. When the sheriff arrived, Judith pointed at me like a villain in a courtroom drama. He rigged the bridge, arrest him. The officer looked at the scene, the stuck truck, the mud, the shattered wood, then at me. "You got paperwork for this land." I handed him a folder, neat and ready: survey maps, county permits, time-stamped photos. He flipped through it, nodded. "Looks solid. This bridge is on his property." Judith's face went pale. "That's not how it works." "The HOA isn't a government authority, ma'am," the officer said evenly. "You don't have jurisdiction here." You could have heard a pin drop. Neighbors started whispering. Someone laughed. Judith's voice cracked. "You're taking his side." The officer shrugged. "You trespassed. He's within his rights. I'd suggest you settle this civilly and maybe pay for the damage your trucks caused." When he said that, something shifted. The power Judith had used to scare everyone melted away. Her clipboard hung useless at her side. As the tow truck hauled that cement mixer out of the mud, I stood there quietly. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. I just felt free. But Judith wasn't done, not by a long shot. 2 days later, she sent a community-wide email, a long, polished message about reckless homeowners endangering public safety. She didn't name me, but everyone knew. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I printed all my documents, every photo, every permit, every report, and pinned them to my front door for the entire neighborhood to see. By sunset, people were stopping to read. A few gave me a thumbs up. Others whispered, "About time someone stood up to her." Then came the next blow, a letter from the HOA. A $800 fine for unauthorized modifications to shared property. I almost laughed. Then I made a phone call to the county inspector. 2 days later he came out, walked the property, checked the markers, took photos. When he was done, he smiled. "You're clean, Mr. Vale. She's got nothing. That Thursday I went to the HOA meeting, the first one I'd attended in years. Judith was at the front, mid-speech about community harmony. The moment she saw me, her voice faltered. I walked up calm, steady, and laid my folder on the table. I figured I'd stop by, I said. Seems like I'm part of the agenda. She stiffened. Mr. Vale, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, I interrupted. I opened the folder, deed inspection reports, police statements, and set them out one by one. I tried reasoning, I said. I followed your process. You ignored it, abused it, and sent trucks over my property. So I rebuilt legally. And when you crossed the line again, the truth did the teaching. The room was dead silent. An older woman finally spoke. He's right. You fined me for painting my shed. This has gone too far. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Judith's mask cracked. This is slander, she snapped. No, I said quietly. This is accountability. By the next week, the board voted her out. I didn't celebrate. I just sat on my porch watching the sunlight glint off the bridge, my bridge standing tall, unbroken. A few days later, Judith came by. No blazer, no heels, no clipboard. Just a gray sweater and tired eyes. Mr. Vale, she said softly. I came to apologize. I let the position get to my head. I wanted control so badly I forgot about people. I nodded. You don't have to explain it, just don't do it again. She managed a faint smile. You were right about one thing, she said. Control isn't order. I didn't see that until I lost it. She turned and walked away, and for once I didn't feel angry. Just done. Later that evening I stood on that bridge, ran my hand along the railing, and whispered to myself, boundaries aren't walls. They're lines of respect. You don't draw them to keep people out. You draw them to remind people where not to cross. And that's the lesson I learned the hard way. When someone keeps crossing your line, sooner or later, the ground beneath them gives way.